Hi, this is Jeffery James Bucchino, writer and director of Cell Block Z, here to talk to you a little bit about the movie. Cell Block Z was a short film about 2 years in the making. It was a short story I came up with after reading a book about zombies. I just thought it would be a great idea to see if a short film basically told from the point of view of two people in prison, the night after the zombie apocalypse happened and the whole cell block just turned to zombies. This footage you're seeing here is actually some B-roll stuff we shot after we had pretty much gotten done filming the bulk of the film on the second day. I just got a whole bunch of random close-ups of the bars and the jail cell. You're hearing the news broadcast. You're hearing is four of our voice actors. One of which is my brother-in-law Robert Saudi. Then you also have Dean Nicola, Don Compton, J.T. Taylor. And if you listen closely right here, you can actually hear my one little voice cameo right there. And there you hear the first voice of Albert Roberts, who is playing Andre, one of the guys in the cell next door. And then you also hear Michael Curtis, the other actor, the other voice of one of the other inmates next door. This is, of course, Jacob Somdi and Richie Johnson playing Charlie and Dante, our two main characters that we're following. I loved the idea that this whole story would take place in this one prison cell, almost giving it a Hitchcock Rear Window kind of feel to it. And this line right here was a very simple line I wrote that didn't really work, so Jacob Somdi just improv something that was much more funny. He did a much longer version of that was a bit nasty. You can see in our outtakes. Here you can also see our prison guard zombie played by Casey Wagner. And it's kind of funny about the way he's doing his, like, the guard thing, just standing there staring at the inmates. That was originally my plan, but I didn't direct that. Casey did that actually himself without any direction, even though that's what I intended him to do in the first place. Now, this scene right here where they're talking about the radio, in the original script, the radio was in the cell with the two main characters, but it was one of those props we had such a hard time finding. I decided to rewrite it to where the radio was in the next cell over, so it would serve two purposes. One, to obviously save us money in the budget, and second, it would almost further isolate our two main characters from the outside world. And it also served better to trim the script down a little bit and give it a little more reason for Andre to be trying to reach around the bars and him getting bit by the zombies, as you hear there. It's funny, the name Jimenez, a lot of people couldn't figure out is spelled with a J, so everybody kept pronouncing it Jimenez. And Albert and Michael did such a great job doing these voiceover parts. This a lot of this had to, a lot of this got edited down because the movie was kind of dragging a little bit, so I had to cut a lot of stuff out. Now, interestingly, we filmed this over the course of 2 days on a Saturday and Sunday. The building in Dawsonville that let us use these old jail cells, these were actually old holding cells that they used to use back in the day. And on the first day, we filmed any of the shots where you see the zombies. On the second day, we filmed any of the stuff that was looking into the cell, just seeing the two main actors. The hooch, the prison wine you see them drinking here, is actually fruit juice. Like a fruit punch stuff that I found that looked close enough to the real thing that we could use it. I actually made a batch of real prison wine using a recipe I found online, and made a little how-to video on that that you can find that is on our YouTube channel as well. And this fruit punch looked close enough to the real thing that we decided to use it. It was extremely sugary, and Jacob actually had to start watering it down towards the end of the day with each of those because it was really messing with his with his system. The one zombie you see in the front there reaching through the bars like that, she was one of the only people that could actually fit her arm through the bars. That's Shannon D. Keith, a good friend of mine. We'd been background extras on several movies and TV shows together, and also worked together on another independent zombie movie. This right here, of course, is where it starts escalating. You hear the character of Andre starting to really degrade, and you hear him starting to finally get to the point where he's turning. And the amazing performance that Albert's giving here, I was convinced that he had really thrown up for that. When he sent me the recordings of it, I listened to it, and it was absolutely disgusting. I had to call him and ask him if he really threw up for that. He insists he didn't. So I guess it was just a really great performance on his part. The splattering noise you hear is just me taking a bucket of water that I'd thickened with flour and dumping it on the concrete and recording the sound. Editing that stuff together, though, I physically got sick. One of the things that I can't stand is the sound of vomiting. And we very intentionally, we shot all this stuff, very carefully to make sure that we got all the shots we wanted it to be pretty much just like this. The shots you see of looking at the walls, and these two shots you see here, this one of Jacob Samdi and the one that's coming up here in a bit looking at Richie, are their genuine reactions. That there and this one right here, that is their genuine reactions. What we did with that was we had each of them go outside while the other one was filming, and I had Michael Curtis do that real screaming from the next cell over. I just had him scream like he was just being torn to pieces, and I filmed their actual reactions for that. And then we have this scene here. This is my second cameo coming up right now. There. That's my bloody hand coming around the corner from the bars there. We just doused my hand in blood and slammed against the bars. Funny enough, that little splatter reaction on Richie came about from when we filmed that shot. My hand splattered blood on the face of my cameraman, a buddy of mine named Justin, and we thought it was so funny that we decided we needed to do that with Richie as well. So that was one of the last things we filmed, was him sitting there, and we just basically gave him a 3 count before splattering blood in his face. And this shot right here, if you notice, is pretty much almost exclusively looking at Jacob Samdi. The reason for that is because we were in such a rush, and we had so many problems with that set. It was hot, and you can see there's all the actors sweating. That's real sweat. They were extremely hot because that upstairs, these 2 jail cells were in the upstairs of the building. Now, downstairs was fine, but up here there was no air conditioning whatsoever. So we had a fan that we would turn on and off. We would turn it off every time we call cut. But we were so rushed that we forgot to film this dialogue looking at Richie. That shot right there, the keys, is actually the first shot we ever filmed when we got to the principal production of the movie. Now, a little note about the costumes. All these costumes, the costume design was basically just to look like a prison work camp uniform, and all those shirts were basically purchased at a Goodwill, and the numbers were painted on by hand by myself. Just got a stencil and some fabric ink and stenciled all those on myself by hand. Each of the numbers actually has some kind of meaning to them. Even the zombies have prison numbers that have some kind of hidden meaning. Like I think one of them is Bela Lugosi's birthday. Richie Johnson's shirt number is actually the street address of Stephen Avery, a man who was featured in a documentary on Netflix about how he was, convicted of a murder that he claims he didn't do, much like Richie's character. The number on Jacob Zombie is a little more personal for me. It's the restaurant number of a McDonald's I used to work at, and I absolutely hated. And interestingly enough, the shirt you see over his shoulder right there, the number on it is my wife's birthday. The shirt's hanging there because there's actually a door right there that leads into the next cell over. And we thought it would be confusing for the audience if they noticed a door there, wondering, oh, well, why don't they just go to the next cell like that? Why don't they just use that? And we just thought to avoid that confusion, we would hang that shirt there to cover up the fact that there was a door. This story he's telling is actually a story somebody told me who had been locked up. And he told me that story, and he said it was the worst thing he'd ever done. He actually got away with it. He didn't have anybody turn him in like this guy did. But when he found out that he had killed these people, he was just horrified at what had happened, and he said he still has nightmares to this day. I obviously took that story and wrote it to where the guy had just no remorse. I even told Jacob, you're not sorry. Don't show any remorse whatsoever. And he just ran with it. He played this character so well. That line right there, doesn't mean I'm supposed to be, is actually a little homage to one of my favorite independent filmmakers, Kevin Smith. And this performance right here that Jacob gives, this part right here, where he just loses it and starts screaming, was an absolutely amazing performance. We did this about 2 or 3 times, and this one right here was where it was absolutely, breathtaking. All our background extras playing the zombies applauded after we called cut for that one. And a lot of the story actually had to get cut for a couple of reasons, mainly just to make the story flow a little better, because the movie was, even though it is a short film, it seemed to drag a little bit at this point, so a little bit of the dialogue was cut out here. These shots here, you can definitely see how much they're sweating, and how hot they really are for these scenes. The teardrop on Jacob Zombie's eye kept sweating off. We had to keep redrawing it over and over again. The male zombie you see that you saw a minute ago actually was Michael Curtis, the actor that plays the other guy in the next cell. Now this line right here is interesting. We actually were missing a few lines of dialogue, so I had to have Jacob come in and record a line that we wrote to sort of fill in the gap and fill in the gap of the logic between one line and the next, and sort of explain that whole idea of who really killed his wife. And here we have, Jacob just doing a wonderful job of just pushing this guy's buttons and just keep pushing him until finally he realizes what he can do, and yeah, there you go. We filmed the hit against the bars in 2 different takes. We did one where he basically grabs his head and shoves him close to the bars, then we cut. Did another scene where his head was against the bars and we see him basically falling away from it. All this stuff here you see of him going up against the bars and taunting all the zombies, that was actually some of the first stuff we filmed, because we knew that a lot of this needed to be a certain way. All this needed to have a certain look, and this all had to work, otherwise the movie wouldn't. And here you see a little bit of B-roll footage from our teaser trailer that we filmed long before we actually got into principal production, and mixed with footage we did during the principal filming. And that look on his face, he just sold when I told him. I said, just remember that one line. It's called fate, and he just did a great job with it. If you look close, you can kind of see the plastic tarp we had laid down to catch all the blood and make our cleanup a little bit easier. And the wonderful song here performed by Kristen Tinsley for our end credits. I knew I needed a song in these end credits, and I did some research. Found this really great, creepy sounding gospel song that was public domain, so we didn't have to pay any rights to do that. And and during another independent production I was in, I met Kristen, and she told me she was a country singer, so showed me some of her music, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have you sing this. And she loved it. And did a great job. Joe Becker is another musician that saw our teaser trailer and sought us out. Actually, said, "Hey, I love the idea. I love what you're planning to do, and I'd really like to be a part of it. I've got a lot of music. See if there's anything you like." And these, of course, are the people that helped us get this movie made. All the people that donated money to our Kickstarter campaign or helped us out with a few dollars here, or the barbecue place that gave us the money. And a little special thanks to my 2 dogs, who their playful growling is actually in here very subtly to add a little creepy effect to the zombies. And, of course, here at the end, we got a little bit of a zombie fact for anybody who wants to take the time to read that. So that's my short film. I hope you guys liked it. And once again, thank you so much for watching.